Use the mic. Floor is open.
Hi, I'm Kathy Reinhold. I've been working with Brian since the 1980s. I have a letter for Kathy and Katie I'd like to read. Dear Kathy and Katie, Brian was a most agreeable person. Passing him in the hallways, he was never too preoccupied to recognize someone with pleasant banter. He was a most helpful person. For instance, when I was doing research into alternatives for my friend Ricardo Porter up at the Orange Performing Arts Center, who had discovered one of his young troops was allergic to the floor surface covering he was using, I sought out Brian. In his lair, under the dance studios in the old building, organized technician that he was, he immediately put his hands on his can of the offending material, identified the ingredient, and out of his vast experience in simple language, gave me his advice on who to call and how to solve the problem. During the ballet school's end-of-the-year performances, Brian's invaluable professionalism was a beacon in the midst of pandemonium. When we used the Virginia Museum Theater, a gazillion dancers, one from each class, were woven into a unified program with a corresponding amount of technical cues. I remember standing backstage, meeting Brian's eyes over the heads of a sea of powder blue ballerinas, whose barely coiled excitement threatened to burst on stage like Jack in the Boxes instead of the painstakingly rehearsed dancers they were. He was thoroughly enjoying the situation, standing there exuding calm with a wonderful smile on his face, solving a few last-minute problems on his headset. His reassuring competence allowed teachers and staff to concentrate on making sure the children had the most successful experiences possible. Another year we were at that theater, I was sitting at the piano in the pit, waiting for a cue from Brian in the wings to begin playing so the curtain could go up and the dance begun. The sight line was awful and the timing essential, as all of us know who have ever suffered the horror of dancing out of sync with a music cue. Here came Brian peeking out with that clear gaze and a smiling nod, and we were comfortably on our way. I experienced that clear gaze again during one of the lower school performances at the Gray Street Theater. One of the teachers was sidelined by a family emergency, and I was happy to be assigned the job of filling in for her. Everyone pitched in to help. We had a difficult entrance to negotiate because there is no stage right wing to speak of in that theater. The children needed to enter through an upstage door and reach the stage gracefully without being smothered in the legs. Of course, time for spacing was limited, and the excitement was building when from across stage, that clear gaze from under the headset asked for a cue clarification, and magically the chaos dissipated, the children calmed, and the situation was resolved in record time. The only time I ever saw Brian completely at sea was when he attended his first parents' observation class to see his daughter dance for the first time. Mr. Weiss was her teacher then. There was Brian, hunched in the back of the room without his headset, adrift, a helplessly proud parent, so pleased for Katie he didn't know what to do with himself. I confess, after witnessing that, for a long time after that, when we did our usual passing in the hall, I teased him unmercifully. He always broke into that big smile. He was so proud of Kate. My best wishes to you.
Hi. I'm Kat, Fran. We're friends with Kate. And I've always had this one memory that I'll always have in front. Okay, well, we all know about his sense of humor, and we all know about how he loved the Packers. Well, my favorite team is the 49ers. So one day, I'm going to go spend the night at Kate's house. And yes, the 49ers have just beaten the Packers. I come in all nervous with my bag, so I'm like, "You're not going to hurt me, are you?" And he's like, "No, I wouldn't do anything like that." And he came up to me and he smiled and he said, "I want to let you know something, Catherine." I said, "Yeah, Dad."
I've been Kate's friend for a really long time, and I remember in 4th grade, Brian used to take me to jazz class every Thursday. And my first jazz class, I was so nervous. But I just remember Brian was in the front seat, and I was in the back seat with Kate, and we were in our shoes and all that stuff, and him just laughing about how nervous we were. And I just, we all just started cracking up and stuff, and it was really cool. He's a very good person.
I remember my dad as someone who could always make anyone smile. No matter what the situation was, he was always there with some strange, corny advice that was just like him, teasing me about my strange habits, or the fact that no matter what I chose, that it would always be the right decision, whether or not he thought so or not. And I can always remember him doing those strange dad things, like when I had sleepovers. He'd always come in and tell those corny dad jokes, you all know them, where you just laugh because you're so embarrassed. And then, he thinks he's so funny, and I guess that's worth anyways. And then he'd always tell my guy friends that he'd have a shotgun, and it made it even funnier because he never had a shotgun. And he'd remind them that over and over again. And I just remember him as someone who would smile and laugh even when you were having trouble, and that always made you feel better. And my dad was just a really good guy who could make a good situation out of just about anything, The only time I ever saw my dad cry was at Hallmark commercials and really sad movies. And I'll always remember that because that's where I got my tendency to cry from. Aside from my mom, of course, who cries constantly too. I just wanted to say that about my dad, that he was such a good person, and no one should be crying because heaven's supposed to be a happy place, and that's where he is now, and he's smiling down on us thinking, these are my family. These people are people I love, and I don't want them to be unhappy.
Ballet, some of our favorite memories and stories that we tell amongst each other and kind of pass down through the generations are the stories that come from our lecture demonstrations. For those of you who don't know, every year we do about 100, this year 109, something like that, 138 lecture demonstrations throughout elementary schools all over Virginia. seemed, at least to me, in my experience with being with Brian, that every time he would be with your group, something very odd, strange would happen. Tapes would break, shoes would go up too late, he would end up going to the wrong school and have to go back. Probably my favorite memory was when we got pulled over in the parking lot by a policeman who asked us why we were parked in the bus lane. And we're like, well, we're here to do a show. I mean, it was literally, we pulled up and the police car pulled up right behind us, lights flashing. And apparently somebody in the school had called the police and said, somebody parked legally. Totally neglecting to remember the fact that he was coming to that day. He always took it in such stride. And I always used to joke with him that going out with him on those lectures and trips was always an adventure. I always enjoyed it.
See if anybody else was standing up. I'll use this because I'm losing my voice a little bit right now. I think there's a lot of that going around. My name's Roxy Salt-Stickery. And several years back, I was the costume supervisor for the ballet. Ryan and I used to spend a lot of time in the van. Riding around, wait a minute, no, wait a minute. Riding around to tour locations, following the bride and trucks. Anyway, I would always carry a little cassette tape holder of cassette tapes with me. And first time we were on the road, I opened it and I said, "You want to listen to some tapes?" He said, "Yeah, what do you have?" And well, what I would have would be the best of tapes, the best of the Doobie Brothers, the best of Aerosmith, the best of ZZ Top, just the best of whatever. And about the third trip we took, and I listed all these, the best ofs, he said, "You know, Rox, you're getting old when all of your tapes are the best of." I said, "So you don't like it?" "Oh, I like it. You're just showing your age." So I just wanted to say my little piece to Brian, the best of the best.